if you don't own a piece of a business, you don't have a path towards financial freedom. So why is owning equity in a business important to becoming rich or wealthy? Hey, what's up, everyone? And welcome to the first episode of the Path to Freedom podcast of 2024. So if you're listening to this in real time, Happy New Year. Hope everyone had an amazing holiday season. I know I did. Really got to take some time to unplug and spend a lot of time with the family and just, really kind of have some downtime, which, for us was great and much needed. If you can hear the congestion that I have, definitely passed around a head cold throughout the family over the holidays, but that didn't keep us from having a great holiday season and spending some good time together. So hope you and yours were able to do the same. But now I'm focused on 2024 and beyond, and really excited for everything that this year is going to have in store, including the podcast, the Path to Freedom brand, the people that I'm currently working with to help explore franchise ownership, and hopefully many more amazing people that I'll connect with and be in a position to help advise when it comes to the possibility of franchise ownership. But really what I wanted to share today, just a quick little solo episode, won't take up too much of your time, but I hope you'll find this valuable because I know I have been. I've talked quite a bit on the podcast and used to ask every guest that I have on the podcast about a book that they're currently reading. I always try to read and have always enjoyed reading and get a lot out of reading all types of books. But right now I'm reading a wonderful book that I wanted to share. It's called the Almanack of Naval Ravikant. And if you're not familiar with Naval Ravikant, he's a really interesting guy, first generation immigrant from India, and a pretty rough upbringing in terms of the deck was not really stacked in his favor. Overcame a lot of odds, worked his way really up through college, got into kind of the Silicon Valley startup world. So he's an entrepreneur, he's an investor, probably most well known as being the co-founder, chairman, and former CEO of AngelList. He's been an early stage investor in over 200 companies, mostly in the tech space. Some notable companies: Uber, Foursquare, Twitter, Wish.com. I mean, the list goes on. But he's had over 70 exits, 10 unicorn companies. The point is, the guy's made a lot of money through making really smart investments. And as he's gotten older, as he's become more and more wealthy and financially free, he's also shifted a lot of what he talks about to really just talking about how to really become happy and how to really enjoy life and live a fulfilled life. And so this book was recommended to me by numerous people. Thought it would be a great book to read, kind of over the holidays and going into the new year. So, I'm only about a third of the way through it right now, but I've listened to Naval over the years. Was first introduced to him through Tim Ferriss on his podcast. Naval's got a great podcast interview with Joe Rogan from a few years back. So, he's out there on some great podcasts. Has done his own very short form podcast in the past as well. So I'll drop some links in the show notes to some of the podcast interviews with Naval that I've personally enjoyed the most and would highly recommend, folks really spending some time listening to him, because he's very thoughtful, really kind of philosophical in a lot of ways, but also in very practical ways. And so the reason I wanted to kind of touch on this right now is we, are in real time in the first week of the new year. A lot of people are thinking about goals. A lot of people, hopefully spent some time at the close of the year laying out some goals for the coming year and beyond. And I put an episode out a few weeks ago talking about the 3 things that were necessary to accomplish any goal. And I kind of framed it specifically through the context of, the goal to start a business or become a business owner. So this kind of goes hand in hand with that. And, if you look at, statistics, or just think about your own, personal goals and, goals you currently have, goals you've had in the past, chances are many of those goals are tied to, building wealth and being happy. And that's really, what this book, The Almanack of Naval Ravikant, speaks to. The subtitle is A Guide to Wealth and Happiness. And I'll also put this in the show notes, but a few years ago, Naval put on Twitter what they call a tweet storm, where, he kind of laid out a chain of tweets that really just kind of detail his philosophy when it comes to building wealth. And that got a lot of attention. I think at the time broke some records for number of retweets, number of shares, things of that nature. But it's all really practical guidance and advice, but I think it's counterintuitive to what a lot of people, think about when they think about building wealth. So if building wealth in any form or fashion is, one of the goals that you have, and regardless of where you're at on that path to building wealth, I think some of this will be applicable and hopefully interesting for you. But, one of the things Naval talks about, and first, he's very, very open about the fact that, because again, I think this is counterintuitive for a lot of people, that if you really want to truly be happy in life, you need to build wealth, because otherwise you're going to spend so much of your time stressing and worrying about, how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to provide for my family? And so when he talks about building wealth, he's talking about true financial freedom. He's not talking about having a high income, but an income that requires you to continue investing your time or trading your time for money. So, one of the things I highlighted as I'm reading this is, one of his core pillars for wealth building is build or buy equity in a business. And he says, if you don't own a piece of a business, you don't have a path towards financial freedom. So why is owning equity in a business important to becoming rich or wealthy? It's ownership versus wage work. If you are paid for renting out your time, even lawyers and doctors, you can make great money, but you're going to make that money, but you're not going to make the money that gives you financial freedom. You're not going to have passive income where a business is earning for you while you're on vacation. And he says this is probably one of the most important points out of all the points that he makes. And people seem to think that you can create wealth, make money through work, but that's probably not going to work. There are many reasons for that. Without ownership, your inputs are very closely tied to your outputs, right? And he goes on, in the book, and, if you listen to any of the podcast interviews he's done, if you look at this tweet storm that he became pretty well known for, he'll be the first to say that, having equity in a business does not necessarily mean that you found a business and you build it from the ground up. That's certainly one way to do it. But, even in this quote that I read, if you don't own a piece of a business, you don't have a path towards financial freedom. So build or buy equity in a business. That can be as simple as, investing in stock, becoming a shareholder, right? We all know that investing into the stock market, that's a way that you can start to generate passive income, right? Now, until you get to the point where you have significant amounts of capital to invest into the market, that passive income is probably not going to be enough to cover your lifestyle without you continuing to work in exchange for money in some form or fashion. If you're listening to this podcast, then there's a good chance that you're looking to create more freedom in your own life. There's also a good chance that you realize that owning your own business can be a great way to take more control of your livelihood and create more of that freedom that we're all looking for. Also, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you realize that I specialize in franchise ownership. In addition to owning franchise businesses myself, I have a franchise consulting firm, Path to Freedom, where I help people navigate what is typically an overwhelming process of understanding franchising, identifying specific franchise companies that could be a fit, and then conducting the due diligence in a thorough and efficient manner with those franchise brands. My whole purpose here is to leverage my experience working for franchisors, owning franchises myself, and how we've been able to use that to create more freedom in our lives and help you determine if that could be a path that makes sense for you as well. So if any of this sounds interesting, if you've considered business ownership in the past, whether you've explored franchising specifically or not, I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to learn more about you and what it is that you're working towards in your life and determine if I may be in a position to help. A great starting point is the link below in the show notes, which will take you to a short form to fill out, and you'll receive a free copy of an ebook that I've put together, The 7 Steps to Freedom Through Franchise Ownership. That'll also get us connected, and I'd love to set up an introductory call where I can explain a little bit more about the process that I use to help people determine if franchise ownership could be a great way to start charting their own path to freedom. So click the link below in the show notes, receive the ebook, and let's get connected. I'd love to hear from you. But I guess the reason I really wanted to point this out is because, wealth building is one of the most common topics, one of the most common goals that people would say they're working towards. But I think a lot of people just don't even understand what building wealth really entails and the pathway to getting there. And, one of the things I feel very fortunate to have learned early in my working career is, what Naval talks about here, which is you have to own something in order to ever really have a chance of building wealth. Right. And I'm not sitting here today saying that I'm wealthy or I'm financially free. What I do with Path to Freedom, in particularly the franchise consulting portion of Path to Freedom, I'm essentially trading my time for money. If I am not actively, speaking with people, coaching people, advising people out there, developing relationships with franchise brands and the CEOs and the founders and the key people behind these brands, nothing's happening and no money's coming in, right? So that's just like his example in the book of a doctor or a lawyer. It can be pretty good income, yes, but if I stop for a prolonged period of time, the income dries up pretty quickly, right? But on the other hand, we have our franchise businesses, right? We have some real estate investments. That's another way of, leveraging equity, right? Something that you own and something that's generating revenue for you without you physically having to trade your time for it. And so, part of why I wanted to talk about this on the podcast is just to, reframe for people if building wealth is really a goal that you have for yourself, take a minute and stop and assess, like, am I even anywhere close to being on a path that's going to allow me to build wealth and ultimately have financial freedom? And I agree with Naval that, if you really want to live a happy, fulfilled life, becoming wealthy is sure as hell going to help you do that, right? I'm not saying money is going to make you happy and buying things with money is going to make you happy, but it's going to put you in a position where you can really spend the vast majority of your time pursuing things that interest you, spending time with the people you want to spend time with when you want to spend time with them. You're not controlled by someone else, and they're not dictating what you do and when you do it just so you can earn the money that you need to live and, live in a comfortable manner. So I buy that hook, line, and sinker all day long, the way Naval Ravikant talks about it. So, I have a lot of conversations with people, that are maybe kicking around the idea of investing in a franchise. And, one of the biggest hesitations is always, hey, I've got a great high paying job. And that's fantastic. But that's in many cases a deterrent from them really taking the time to explore business ownership. And that's, I guess, really what I want to highlight with this episode here. And I'm not telling anyone to quit a good high paying job with a salary and benefits and walk away from it cold turkey and go start a business. That's not what I'm saying, right? But what I am saying is, if you have a job that's paying you $200,000, $300,000, $600,000 a year, or even more than that, are you really on the pathway to building wealth? And maybe you are, right? Maybe you're taking some of that money and you're investing it to businesses, whether that's through stock or, as a shareholder. Maybe you are a shareholder with the company that you work for. Maybe you've got stock options. Maybe you're investing in real estate. Whatever the case is, that's great. But if you're not, stop and think about what pivots might you need to consider to really put yourself on a pathway to start building true wealth, right? And if you buy into what Naval talks about, that it's virtually impossible to truly become wealthy and to truly become financially free unless you own businesses or own equity. I just think that's a really important thing for people to stop and think about. And it's so counterintuitive to what, most of us grew up being taught, what we learned in school. The typical career track that most people have aspired to is go work for the big company, spend 20, 30 years climbing the ladder, wait for that annual bonus every year. And, maybe you get some stock options and chuck some money away into a 401k, do that till you're 62, maybe 65, and then go spend life the way you want to spend life. And, to me, that's not a pathway to truly becoming, happy and living a fulfilled life. And especially in this day and age, I mean, he talks a lot in this book about, the beauty of the age we live in with technology and the internet, and just how many different avenues someone has to go and build equity or even buy equity, in all different types of businesses, right? So even if it's not a franchise, right? You guys hear me say this all the time. Franchise ownership's not for everyone. It's not, the perfect best model out there. It's a great model for a lot of people. It's done well for me and my family. And it's, where we have started building some wealth and where we do have some equity and we do have some substantial income coming in, whether we're actually trading our time for money or not. But it doesn't have to be that, right? Go look at any other option that's allowing you to buy or create equity in something so that you're actually putting yourself on a pathway to building wealth, which is going to lead to financial freedom, which is going to make it a hell of a lot easier for you to live a happy and fulfilled life. So anyways, I'm enjoying the heck out of this book right now, The Almanack of Naval Ravikant. I'll post a link to the book on Amazon in show notes. It's in Audible as well if you prefer to listen to books. I don't get anything out of sharing this. It's just a book that I'm reading and really enjoying. I will also post links to a few of my favorite podcast episodes that Naval has been interviewed on. And Naval, if this happens to cross your desk, just wanted to say I really appreciate everything that you do, the things that you talk about, and all the advice that you give. It's really helped me out a lot. So with that, I hope everyone has a great first week of 2024. If you haven't really spent some time outlining your goals for the year, please do so. If listening to this inspired you in any way to maybe adjust some of the goals that you have and make sure that you are putting yourself in a position to start building wealth, not just earning more money, then, that's part of what I'm here to do. So go drop in. We'll be back next week with the typical interview format of the podcast. Please share this with anyone that you think may get value, and we'll see you next time.